The year is 2015. Undertale is the talk of the internet and it becomes a cultural phenomenon inspiring the community to create animations, songs and fan games. A lot of fan games. Things were looking great and as time went on, the community grew larger and larger. But as time went on, the hype for the game died as there simply wasn't a lot left to talk about. So we turned to looking at the website, inside the game files, and even inside the code for something new to uncover. We were starved for content, and Toby's total radio silence on social media made us wonder if he'll ever release something related to Undertale in the future. I'm sorry, what? On Halloween Day 2018, Toby Fox unveiled his new game to the world, taking place in a universe completely separate from that of Undertale, sharing a couple of design elements such as the save points and a lot of familiar faces. Something of note here is that development didn't start after Undertale released, and in fact dates back to somewhere around 2012, the idea coming to him in a fever dream. That explains a lot actually. After the Kickstarter campaign for Undertale raised over $50,000, he shifted his focus towards developing that game, and only after finishing and publishing Undertale did he come back to finish Deltarune. Well, at least the first chapter, there's like 7 more planned chapter releases. Out of the 8 total chapters, only 4 have been released. And as they did, the internet has started criticizing the game more and more, and especially in the last 2 chapters. So I set out to find the truth. Is Deltarune a bad game? This is the legend of Deltarune. It's the basis for the game's story, and it basically boils down to a couple of things. Light and dark are 2 elements which bring stability to this world. If that balance shifts, then our 3 heroes appear to banish whatever was causing the disruptance, and now everything is cool and the geyser or fountain in the middle of the world is the only one where darkness is produced. Until another jackass decides to open up another fountain somewhere else. Okay, but instead of listening to me ramble about nonsense, shouldn't you shift your focus towards the mysterious voice speaking to you? Just saying. It asks you to create a vessel for that red heart in the middle, or your soul, like the one from Undertale. That fragile little heart represents you, the player. And the vessel you just created... ain't that a bitch? The message here stands out to me, however. You don't get to choose how or where you are born. Heck, you don't even get to choose that, to be born at all. It's, as the game implies, out of your control. You wake up as Chris, a human child who is nagged by their mom and are forced to do the horrifying task of going to public school. You'll recognize her as Toriel from Undertale, a kind, motherly figure, and is the teacher at your school. Analyzing the room we are in a bit, there are 2 beds. One we can assume to be of our sibling that has tons of awards and diplomas. And then there's ours. After using the restroom enough times, we're off to school. Toriel starts talking about our brother, Asriel, who's coming back from university next week. We get a sneak peek of the town and its people, with new and familiar faces all around. Not directly stated anywhere, but it's implied that the gas prices in the Deltarune/Undertale universe are abysmally lower than in our own universe, since who takes a car ride for a 2-minute walk? Just you're hugged goodbye and head to class. Your teacher's name is Alphys and has assigned a 2-person group project to everyone while you were away. You talk to everyone in class, yet unfortunately, everyone seems to have found a partner already. The dear girl, Noelle, offers to ask the teacher if we can make a group of 3 with... Never mind. This is Susie, the bully of the school, if you will. She's not the most friendly of faces, as besides loving to bite chalk, she loves just as much to bite people's face off. So just your luck, as you, yes, you, are sent with Susie to get more chalk for office. In the process, you get stuck inside of an infinite void closet where this happens. Now, call me insane, but I don't think closets are supposed to do that. Getting up and walking down the path, you can spot a dark figure just out of distance. There are dust-like blobs scattered around, which can be blown. Then, with the corner of your eye, you catch a glimpse of a figure rapidly fleeing and hiding in these monsters. And with nowhere left to hide now... Thank God it was Susie. But that figure didn't look like Susie. So, who was it then? Question short-lived, however, as you're attacked and chased by the figure, only to then find yourself inside some sort of city. Checking every door leads to the same response. It's locked. Further in, there's a castle in which you can enter. There, to your surprise, someone is waiting for you. A cloaked figure greets you, identifying himself as the prince of this kingdom, the Kingdom of Darkness, calling both Chris and Susie heroes of light. Now wait, hold on, what the fuck is going on? Susie's not buying this hero thing as, well, it sounds insane, and when she's about to head off... Also known as Lancer, who's my favorite character all around. Susie's aggressiveness is showcased here, and she's not to be messed with, as hurting things is apparently the only way she knows how to solve conflicts. After that whole ordeal, the prince takes off his cloak, revealing his name to be Ralsei. He's the other hero from the legend, and mostly serves as a guide. For now at least. Susie leaves to find the fountain mentioned in the legend, but before following suit, Ralsei offers to explain to you the fighting mechanics. Or you can just skip over it and be breaking his poor little heart.
Hey, what's up, fool? What you calling a nigga? No, I'm not calling nobody a nigga. Wait, what the fuck?
You encounter a shopkeeper along the way. They're called Siam, but pronounced Sean. I'm not fucking calling it Sean. There is a lot to ask the keeper, however, notably, when asked about the kingdom, it mentions how there used to be 4 kings, until one day, a strange knight appeared and locked 3 of them away. I'm sure this knight is nothing to worry about, leaving the shop and returning to whatever the hell we were doing. Susie joins us and, just as quickly, abandons us for Lancer. Then we form a polyamorous relationship setting out for the king's castle. But not before we see in more detail just how well Susie and Lancer get along. At first glance, it might seem like a small interaction between the two of them, to showcase their friendship. But it's the first act of kindness we see from Susie so far, and a step in the right direction for her character. Chatting away and getting closer to the card castle, Lancer starts asking something rather strange. Ah, it's like in the States. You do jack shit nothing and they throw you into jail for allegedly chasing people around whilst naked, even though I had boxers on. But that's public indecency. Shut up. Looking around, we find moss. But nothing to get out of this stupid place. Luckily, in the next room, Susie needs just a little bit of help with a puzzle in order to open the door. Maybe that guard could help. She's out of the cell and only thing left for us to do is wait. She hears a faint voice. It's Lancer's. Unfortunately, he's behind the puzzle door. She struggles a bit with it, as one does, but after opening the door, this entire scene is very interesting for many different reasons. Susie's dialogue suggests that she lacked friends growing up. This can give rise to problems in the future. You become frustrated and this frustration eventually leads to aggression. Exactly what is reflected to Susie. Why did she struggle with making friends isn't clear yet, but maybe she'll open up about it later. Also, while they talk, Lancer eats all of Susie's attacks, and at some point he even refuses to fight back, revealing that deep down he doesn't want to hurt her. And just before landing the final strike, Susie stops herself and expresses empathy for someone, for Lancer, and to Chris, out of all people, who she bullied on the constant up until now. The team reunites and before confronting the king, there are two collectibles to pick up. An egg and a key. To find this, you either have to be the luckiest person alive or you watch a 2-hour-long video on all collectibles because there isn't a damn clue on God's green earth to where you can find this. When you transition between these two specific rooms, there is a 2% chance, yes, a 2% chance you get taken here. Interacting with the tree, it says he is behind the tree. Going well behind the tree, a man wants to offer you something. Accepting the gift, you're given an egg that you can't do anything with, and the man then disappears. This one is a bit more complicated. In summary, go to Epstein's cell, talk to the crazy creep inside, then go to these 3 specific locations to find the fragments of the key. Fix it here and— OH SHIT! I think I need a break. With this out of the way, you go confront the king and see... Can you please stop interrupting me? Lancer tries reasoning with the king about letting us seal the Dark Fountain, but it goes as well as you might expect. I'll say, don't you dare do it. Good question, King. Have you heard about plot armor? Overthrowing the king, or what people in France might call an average Tuesday evening. What is wrong with me, bro? Lancer became the new king and has implemented some interesting reforms. Once you're done and are about to leave, Ralsei has one last thing to say. Wait a minute. School's over and it's getting late, so we'll have to go back tomorrow to check whether that was all a dream or not. We part ways with Susie and are advised to return home. However, you can go and explore the town and talk to everyone here. It doesn't affect anything if you don't want to talk to anyone here. Or at least I don't think so. But you're a bitch! Inside the flower shop owned by Asgore, you can put the egg you got in the Dark World inside the fridge. And that is all you can do with eggs. Either you find a place to put the egg in, or it disappears in the next chapter. Asgore is also our divorced father.
So honey, we want to talk to you about something.
We're getting a divorce.
We want to talk.
We're getting a divorce.
But hey, at least he's trying to square things off with Toriel by bringing her flowers, and it will go about the same way you expect. Snooping around, there's a note on the ground saying he didn't pay his rent on time. And is signed by someone whose name starts with the letter C. Might not seem important now, but keep this C individual in mind. There is a lot to do here. People you can talk, but I don't have the time to explain everything. I just can't. I'll bring up the dialogue or interaction in the future when I have to explain something. Arriving home, you go straight to bed, then wake up at 2 AM in the morning, rip your heart out and stare at the camera awkwardly for 7 seconds. Then it cuts to black.
When I'm jerking my shit off and I'm jerking off my cock.
So here, after every chapter, I will discuss all the aspects, ranging from the characters to the gameplay, community and the story. It did an amazing job in setting up some interesting ideas for future chapters. For example, who is the mysterious knight? What is the Dark World? Was SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated a good game? I like the twist at the end of the Dark World. By the time you reached the Dark Fountain, it's highly likely you forgot about the Light World due to how immersive it was. Unfortunately, this charm is lost in the next chapters, for me at least. I want to also point out something I find quite intriguing related to Chris and the player. How and why do you suddenly just appear and randomly take control of somebody's body? It's strange. This connects into the ending of chapter 1 as Chris, who you control, rips you, the player, out of their body and throws you into a birdcage. The soul can still be controlled while inside, but not Chris. This creates a certain distinction that you, the soul, and Chris are different individuals who can both take control of the body. We have no clue what the other Chris's intentions are so far, but we'll learn more as we go on. Now for the characters, obviously Susie comes to mind first. She was nicely introduced as a bit of an antagonist, a lone wolf type of character who doesn't care about others, using violence to solve her problems. And that's part of the reason why her character development scene was very well executed. Susie became friends with Lancer, opening up to him, only to then be betrayed by him and lash out in frustration. And finally, at the end, realizing that killing Lancer, and anybody else for that matter, won't solve the problem at large, showing that talking is, sometimes, a much better option, okay? I have one glaring issue regarding the characters, and it's how easily forgettable Ralsei is. Yes, in spite of accompanying you for the majority of the chapter, he hasn't had any memorable moments other than at the very beginning and at the very end of the chapter. I'll get to talk more about Ralsei in the next chapter, but that's all I had to complain about the characters, without nitpicking of course. It feels a bit livelier compared to Toby's previous work. Undertale felt in general more static, and this is complemented by a good soundtrack which has some bangers like Versus Susie and The World Revolving, just to give a few examples. However, it lacks a theme unlike the future chapters. I can't give you an example without at least spoiling the next chapters in a way, so I guess you'll have to wait and see. Now the community. Oh boy. I don't have a lot to talk about here, because the community of Deltarune wasn't as big as it is today. We had far fewer people making fan art and theories, as there was little to speculate on, other than the previously mentioned things. In general, people were more interested in Undertale because Deltarune was just a small demo, which was labeled as a survey. Yeah, overall, Chapter 1 wasn't bad, especially for a prologue. There are only a couple of things which can and will be improved upon in the next chapter. We wake up from that bad dream, thankfully. Toriel is just pissed off at Chris for demolishing all by themselves the entire pie she baked last night, but still laughs about it. You get out of bed and prepare for school. You saw nothing, you hear me? Once at school, it's time for lecture class. Not the most enticing thing, and it's made so much worse by that bird that I hate. Or birdry. Slept so well in fact that class is over and it's time to go inside the closet. Not before Noel offers you and Susie an invitation to study at the library for the group project. We'll still have to do it sooner or later. Okay, but there are more important matters at hand, like doing weird shit in the closet. You shippers be living the dream right now. Dropping in, Ralsei greets us in an empty town and explains that you have to gather everything in that classroom and bring it here in order for everyone to come back. The town then springs back to life, but question is, what happened to the other Dark World?
Apparently, after you sealed the Dark Fountain, the classroom reverted to its original state, and in turn got rid of the only source of power, keeping everyone there alive. Thus, bringing them back to the main Dark Fountain, you return life back to them.
There's a lot to explore here. New buildings appeared like the dojo, bakery and the shop. But most importantly, Ralsei's castle has a surprise prepared for us. Going upstairs, Ralsei has built a living space for Susie and Chris in which they can chill whenever they feel like doing so.
Others get the same treatment. Lancer, for example, gets his own room. So does the pet hamster.
We have to leave the Dark World, unfortunately. The group project won't do itself after all.
Lancer slides inside our pocket, but he will not be able to maintain his form in the Light World, as Ralsei explains. So he's just going to hang around, just in case. Fine, those two can also come.
Heading to the library, we can't find anyone around. It's awfully quiet, even for a library.
And as expected, we have a new fountain on our hands. So, I guess there's one thing left for us to do then. Well, this is new. Things are different from last time this has happened. Rough terrain and the enemies pleading to us for help isn't a good sign, however. Up ahead, we find the girl from school, Noelle, who seems to be in trouble. This is the Queen. She's my favorite character from this chapter. And before you comment, no, not because of her features.
She also has a degradation king and talks about how she's going to use Noelle in her plan for world domination.
Then she acts like a pussy and throws some random bystanders at us before going back to her red cave like the little bitch she is.
Finishing the fight, more guys are thrown at us. That sounds so gay. But before they can do anything, they're pacified by the man himself. He sensed a dark presence and hurried over to help us. Why can you do that? Hell, how do you do that? Same goal as last time. Seal the fountain and go through an unnecessary amount of pain to get there.
That was such a nice transition. We encounter the Queen again, beat her ass at Smash, then a group of Clanker rebels try to stop us in helping the Queen. Yeah, thank you, AI overview.
A round of Just Dance later and we're on our way to the next encounter. Noelle sure is acting a bit strange when talking to Susie. But to make things even more awkward, Burley joins to ruin the moment whilst dick riding the Queen in the process. Even the Intel Core lady is puzzled by what delirious things come out of his mouth. So the coaster we were fighting on this entire time was apparently built by a roller coaster tycoon player, and we fall to the ground. We land at EA's headquarters after PvZ Replanted launched and reach a crossroad where Susie and Ralsei split, taking the upper path at this junction to cover more ground, while you can go alone on the other path. That's fine, it can't be that bad. It's not like they're gonna be having tons of fun while I try to deal with this googled eye, axe spray smelling, Discord moderator, Batgirl water drinking
A whole lot of running around and causing a traffic jam. You meet up with Noelle, then 2 seconds later get attacked by mice.
And guess who isn't fond of that? Luckily, her fear is what saves her in the next room, as you have to direct the mice towards Noelle to make her jump onto the next platform, with the added challenge of having to hear Birdly monologue the entire time. Directly into the next room, a new egg can be found. All you have to do is just get run over by a UI driver and spam room transitions, only to get sent to the tree room where again you get ghosted by the man behind the tree. Returning to the main path now, we ride the queen, with the queen to find Noelle. Yeah, I wonder where she is, bro. While trying to fix the traffic jam, you get jumped by a certain someone. This is Spamton. He might seem like a random character at first, but he is packing a ton of lore. Matter of fact, I'll talk about him all across this video. Spamton talks in a funny way, like he's being corrupted by something. This fight gives a little bit of insight into who Spamton was. A successful businessman that for some odd reason lost it all overnight and now having to sell trash in the trash zone where his shop is.
I will return at a future date to talk about Spamton, but now that... Hey, you didn't have to, Spamton.
Now that the traffic jam is over, the queen explains her obsession with Noelle. She apparently has some hidden power that can help her, but that's about all of the explanation you'll get, because you all get out of the car before it, Now, the following room introduces a new character that will become of huge importance later on, so I'll just let this play out.
This is Noelle's sister, and it's hinted all throughout the chapter that her full name is December Holiday. Through the available dialogue and her being referred to in past tense, it's heavily implied that Des is either missing or, even worse, we can only speculate what occurred, but that's a story for the next chapters to answer. Anyway, where the actual fuck you guys been?
Susie now has a new healing ability, which speaks for itself really. And Ralsei now has unlocked the ability to use sarcasm. We are now truly ready to defeat the forces. I'm starting to see a pattern here.
Ralsei gets a get out of free jail card, while the rest of the team gets sent to jail. And at first glance, this looks like an impossible situation to get out of. However...
See, I told you he'll be important.
Lancer then hacks the console by ordering almost 1,000 shovels from Amazon, which crashes AWS and frees us.
The friend reunion is short-lived, however, since Lancer starts feeling unwell, and Susie suggests finding Ralsei, who could help.
Birdley's also here. Dick.
He asks if he can tag along, and it's here that you finally get to see another side of Birdley. The next 3 rooms contain puzzles, which Birdley thinks we're too stupid to solve on our own. Birdley then becomes more frustrated at Chris and Susie with each puzzle they solve, and starts calling the game rigged. His ego doesn't let him accept the fact that someone's better than him. Birdley isn't actually as smart as he may seem after all. That's when Susie begins laughing at him for pretending to be someone he isn't. Then he snaps. This is a trap a lot of kids fall into. We've all had that one kid who was good at anything. Math, playing instruments, sports, you name it. Everyone thinks someone gifted like that will become successful, and while that's true in some cases, just like with Birdley, not always true. The pressure of keeping up the good work and outperforming everyone is immense. You begin to fear failure, and one slip up is all it takes to go down on a spiral of self-doubt. Both me and my artist friend who made that sick-ass persona animation and thumbnails for my videos had this issue growing up. We both started stressing out over small things most people won't even notice. That is in fact the reason why this video took so long to produce, and it was in part because I kept redoing things I believed were not up to the standard. Irony being, this is the 5th time I'm redoing this part. If you don't fail, you don't improve. Failure can be the most demoralizing thing, while at the same time being a great learning experience, and this is shown here perfectly through Birdley. While Noel, who lost at the spelling bee, learned to deal with failure from a much younger age and got valuable experience from it, Birdley doesn't know how to deal with it, and faced with this stressful event, he lashes out in anger, as he isn't accustomed to accepting defeat. With Birdley's aid and newfound confidence, we can start searching for Ralsei, who, in the meantime, became a butler. He, however, can't do anything about Lancer's illness, and so... Don't worry, he isn't dead. Lancer is just on low batteries for the time being. As Ralsei puts it, we need to return to the OG dark fountain in the school closet for him to turn back to normal. Also, Birdley offers us his help. That's new. Cooking up a plan of rescuing Noel, but we first gotta reach the 3rd floor of this mansion. Instead of going any further, let's circle back to Spamton's shop. There's only one item you need to buy from his shop, that being the keygen. It is required for unlocking the secret boss of Chapter 2 in Queen's Mansion. While talking to Spamton, we also get some strange interactions. Asking him about the night, for example, freaks him out a little. The option now changes to friends, revealing something about someone named Mike and telling us not to believe anything we see on TV. Keep that in mind for the next chapter. Notice that phone ring in Spamton's shop? So here's a theory. Spamton was working in show business and one day he picked up that phone and became successful after receiving an unknown call from someone. Later the phone rang again, but this time it was different. Whatever he heard on it corrupted him pretty badly and everything went down from there. Talking to the sign Addison in the trash area just outside of Spamton's shop, he mentions that Spamton fled his room in the middle of a conversation. Someone was on the other hand, but then he picked up the phone. There was nothing but garbage noise. Now the term garbage noise is in the in-game description of Gaster's team. Yes, that WD Gaster. If you didn't know, they are a mysterious character from Undertale that has puzzled the community for quite some time, and in Deltarune it's speculated that they will play a big role in the future due to the sheer amount of connections Gaster has to Deltarune. Because of this, it isn't as far-fetched of an idea to think he was responsible for glitching Spamton. Misty Sparkles has a video explaining Gaster far better than I can, and I suggest watching it afterwards if you still have some unanswered questions about Gaster.
Anyway, I forgot to state this earlier, but welcome to Diddy's Mansion, where you get assaulted by flamethrowers, attacked by a cat mistress, and attacked yet again by mice.
Horny mice.
At least the music is hella fire.
Inside this room, there's a switch that, when flipped, gives you access to the mansion's basement, where you can use the keygen you bought. Interacting with the not at all creepy puppet on the wall, then returning to Spamton's shop one last time, he'll ask you to transfer him onto the disc you got from the puppet.
Now, turn back to where you found that puppet, and inserting the disc, nothing happens. That's weird, I thought.
While you and Ralsei distract the hot mama, Birdly and Susie take a shortcut to get... Okay bro, cut that shit out.
While on the swan ride across the acid, Ralsei finally gets some much needed screen time. See, I told you I'll come back to him.
Ralsei is used as a means to communicate hints to the player and occasionally be goofy, but Chapter 2 made Ralsei feel like an actual major character, not some rando sidekick in a story.
In Chapter 1, he was pretty forgettable and lacked a personality, despite accompanying you for most of its duration, as Ralsei was used more as of a tutorial than anything else. Chapter 2 expanded Ralsei's character by giving you the player a deeper dive into his feelings towards Chris and Susie, which may or may not have made me question certain things.
We beat the blue asshole at a game of American Estate Agency Simulator and then switch the POV to Susie, who has a heartfelt moment with Noel.
They start to get closer to one another, having a romantic ride on the Ferris wheel, with Noel revealing in a subtle way to Susie that she has a crush on her, as if it wasn't apparent.
Eventually, they get to the end of the ride, where Birdly yet again ruins another moment. God damn you, Birdly! Chris, Susie and Ralsei all then go to face the Queen, who is waiting with a not so funny surprise. Freeing Birdly, he comes to our aid to kick the alien-looking bitch's ass.
You gotta be fucking kidding me.
Now, the Queen revealed some much needed information about this knight we've been hearing all across our journey. We first get a name for the elusive knight, but we're not sure what is meant by that roaring attribute. In addition to this, we now know who keeps creating the dark fountains, but again, the exact motive for doing so is not yet very clear. After beating the Queen with the power of friendship in a boxing match, the group has a stroke of genius. Why should we close the dark fountains if everything here is so much better than in the light world? You can basically do whatever you want here, and everyone seems to support this idea. Besides, Ralsei over here. Oh, that quite neatly explains the knight's name and reason for creating these worlds, to make the roaring happen and bring an end to the world. The fact that both the Queen and King thought that opening up more fountains would greatly benefit them or their people implies that the knight wasn't telling them the full story, or in other words, manipulating them. One interesting detail I observed on the body of the Titan standing in the middle are the eye symbols that can also be found at the very beginning of the game.
I'm not sure what's the correlation between the two of them, and spoiler alert, neither of the two remaining chapters explain it.
Closing the fountain and waking up in the computer room back at the library, everyone awkwardly leaves the room as it's getting late. Susie offers to walk with us home, and just as we're about to part ways,
Toriel greets the both of you and invites Susie to stay over.
after a bit of persuasion, she agrees and wants to help with baking that pie. Chris goes to the bathroom and does some weird shit off screen before returning to the player as if nothing happened.
After baking the pie, you both go sit on the couch and fall asleep watching TV.
The camera then pans towards Toriel, who calls the police in the middle of the night to report that her car tires have been slashed.
Chris, you sack of shit too, falls asleep, and chapter 2 finally comes to an end. And we're back here. The story in this chapter is pretty solid in some regards compared to the first chapter. The whole knight name reveal and roaring are definitely the highlights of the chapter. Combined with the queen boxing match at the end, it creates the most intriguing, immersive and enjoyable part of the whole chapter. But this also has a negative effect of making a good chunk of the story feel like a drag. Now, I'm not saying there weren't good moments throughout, like the whole Spamton slide plot and the setup for one of the key characters for future lore discussion. The boring, repetitive and tedious parts of the chapter are needed for moments like these to shine and stand out among the rest. From a narrative standpoint, these parts are needed in order to transition into focal points where the actual story is told. This is called transitional writing and is used everywhere, not just Deltarune. While the first chapter didn't have a reveal as crazy as chapter 2, it did set up the narrative and as a result it rewarded the players who paid attention to the dialogue, like in the case of the Roaring Knight. Speaking of setting things up, why would Chris open a dark fountain despite knowing the consequences? Ralsei just told you, bro. Not only that, but why would they unlock the front door and leave it open? Onto the characters, and I don't have a lot to say about them. They're solid overall. The designs are unique and on point. They fit the environment quite neatly, and there is just nothing bad I have to say about them. The boxing minigames are an obvious reference to the Punch-Out series, and I absolutely love this bit. But the other parts were... The mice puzzles could have been more interesting and some rooms felt repetitive to say the least. Enemies were varied enough and on theme with the chapter, and most of them had fan attacks. I said most. Besides the queen fight, Spamton had the best fight with a cool foreground and difficult but fair attacks. The music lives up to Toby's standard. Pandora's Palace is my personal favorite out of all the songs. It's something about the higher than usual BPM used here. The themes were something I mentioned earlier into the video, and they are integral to having an immersive atmosphere. It's a style inspired by 8-bit music, which came from the limited hardware that existed when games first started appearing. But Toby Fox's music is much more elaborate than that. 8-bit tracks were synthesized using computer chips themselves. They could alter pitch, loudness and frequency, but they were very limited in what kind of instruments they could emulate. He incorporated into the soundtrack different types of sound waves and instruments. For example, here in Welcome to the City, most of the notes look like this, but this much smoother sound heard in the background couldn't have been produced on the hardware at the time, thus combining the old with the new. Now's the time the community really started to dive deeper into theories, like how does Sans and Gaster tie into the universe of Deltarune, and the connection between the two games. Some high quality animations started appearing, and there was also a charity event hosted exactly 1 year after the second chapter was released. With this, we've finally concluded the first 2 chapters, and yes, I know I still have to cover chapter 3 and 4 before I'll give you the answer to the question at the beginning. To be frank, this is probably the most peaceful period in the Deltarune fandom. No drama, no accusations, just the game and a toxic free community. I'll talk about what was the catalyst for this whole drama regarding the fandom in the next video, as I feel like I would need an entire video just to discuss that incident. Also, we underestimated how long it would take to make this video, and we wanted to post something before Christmas. As for when the next part will come out, before the next chapter releases, hopefully. And happy holidays.